Howdy, y'all. I'm going to be reading you another story from Grimm's Fairy Tales. And if you haven't, please watch my video, disclaimer, not for kids, because these fairy tales are not for children. Okay, this time we are reading a fairy story called Clever Grethel. There once was a cook called Grethel who wore shoes with red heels, and when she went out in them she gave herself great airs, and she thought herself very fine indeed. And when she came home again she would take a drink of wine to refresh herself, and as that gave her an appetite she would take some of the very best of whatever she was cooking until she had had enough, for, said she, a cook must know how things taste. Now it happened that one day her master said to her, "Grethel, I expect a guest this evening. You must make ready a pair of fowls." "Well, certainly, sir, I will," answered Grethel. So she killed the fowls and cleaned them and plucked them and put them on the spit, and then as evening drew near she placed them before the fire to roast, and they began to brown, and they were nearly done, but the guest had not come. "If he does not make haste," cried Grethel to her master, "I must take them away from the fire. It is a pity and a shame not to eat them just now, when they are done just to a turn." And the master said that he would run himself and he would fetch the guest. As soon as he had turned his back, Grethel took the fowls from before the fire. "Standing so long before the fire," said she, "makes one hot and thirsty, and who knows when they will come? In the meantime, I will go to the cellar and I will have a drink." So down she ran, and she took up a mug, and saying, "Here's to me," she took a good draught. "One good drink deserves another," said she, and it should not be cut short, and so she took another hearty draught. Then she went and she put the fowls down to the fire again, and basting them with butter, she turned the spit round briskly. And now they began to smell so good that Grethel, saying, "I must find out whether they are really just right," and she licked her fingers. And then she cried, "Well, I never! The fowls are so good! It is a sin and a shame that no one is here to eat them." So she ran to the window to see if her master and his guest were coming. But as she could see nobody, she went back to her fowls. "Why, one of the wings is burning," she cried presently. "I had better eat it and get it out of the way." And so she cut it off and she ate it up, and it tasted so good. And then she thought, "Well, I had better cut off the other one too, in case the master should miss anything." And when both the wings had been disposed of, she went and she looked for the master, but still he did not come. "Who knows," said she, "whether they are coming or not? They may have put up at an inn." And after a pause she said again, "Come, I may as well make myself happy. And first I will make sure of a good drink, and then of a good meal, and when all is done I shall be easy. The gifts of the gods are not to be despised." So she ran down into the cellar and she had a famous drink, and she ate up one of the fowls with great relish. And when that was done, and still the master did not come, Grethel eyed the other fowl, saying, "What one is, the other must be. The two belong to each other, and it is only fair that they should both be treated alike. Perhaps, when I have had another drink, I shall be able to manage it." And so she took another hearty drink, and then the second fowl went the way of the first. Just as she was in the middle, the master came back. "Make haste, Grethel," cried he. "The guest is coming directly." "Very well, master," she answered. "It will soon be ready." The master went to see that the table was properly laid, and, taking the great carving knife with which he meant to carve the fowls, he sharpened it upon the step. Presently came the guest, knocking very genteelly and softly at the front door. And Grethel ran and looked to see who it was, and when she caught sight of the guest she put her finger on her lip, saying, "Hush! Make the best haste you can out of this, for if my master catches you, it will be bad for you. He has asked you to come to supper, but he really means to cut off your ears. Just listen how he sharpens the knife." And the guest, hearing the noise of the knife sharpening, made off as fast as he could go. And Gretel ran screaming to her master. "A pretty guest you have just asked to the house," cried she. "How so, Gretel? What do you mean?" asked he. "What indeed?" said she. "Why, he has just gone and run away with my pair of fowls that I had just dished up." "Well, that's a pretty sort of conduct," said the master, feeling very sorry about the fowls. "He might have left me one at least, that I might have had something to eat." And he called out to him to stop, but the guest made as if he did not hear him. And then he ran after the guest with the knife still in his hand, crying out, "Only one! Only one!" meaning that the guest should let him have only one of the fowls and not to take both. But the guest thought that he meant to have only one of his ears, and he ran so much the faster that he might get home with both of them safe. The end. I hope you enjoyed that one. Thanks for listening. Y'all be sweet.